Hey friends, welcome again to another edition of your favorite program, Make It Right with Symbol. It is my delight to have you on board even as we explore the concept titled Evolve. What does it mean to evolve? How can we do it? And what are the benefits if we do it rightly? Those are the things we'll be looking at in this edition. And our case study today is the 96-year-old luxury automobile brand called Mercedes-Benz. That name seems intimidating, right? I'm just joking. So in 1885, the German engineer Carl Benz received the patent for the first internal combustion engine vehicle, the Motorwagen W113. That was in 1885, and it became the first amongst the many inventions that Mercedes-Benz curated. As a matter of fact, some of their innovations was around the carburetor, was around the honeycomb carburetor, around the anti-lock braking system, around the improvement in seat belts, and many other things. And you can see the trajectory of their car brands from 1885 to 1955, 1979, 2015, 2018, and onwards. In fact, the motto of Mercedes-Benz is the best or nothing. So what has made this brand to stay afloat for in the last 96 years? Hope you know that it is no coincidence for a brand to have lasted that long. Not just to have lasted that long, but to have been in the top echelon of their business. Now, according to a writer, he says that Mercedes has an history of making history. That means over time, this brand has been able to adapt itself to the dynamics, to the growing demands in the market, to the changing global landscape of needs among the customers. So these are some of the things we'll be looking at. This is one company that has done it right. No wonder that in 2022 it became the top of the 10 most valuable European brands. And this is not a position that it had only in 2022. Even in 2021, it is still the number one brand in Europe. And in the year 2022, they have a cap of 52.4 billion. As a matter of fact, in 2018, it became the company with the most revenue in terms of automobiles. That's a worthy feat. But these are just the benefits of doing something right. What is that thing? Evolve. You need to constantly evolve. But let's look at the PCC of change. When you talk about evolving, you're talking about change. What is the PCC of change? What thematic areas can you be talking of? Can you be looking at evolving? First is personally. What are the skills that you have today that were not relevant yesterday and will no longer be relevant tomorrow? Take, for instance, somebody walks into your office as the chief executive officer and the person says, I have typewriting skills, kindly offer me a job. You will laugh because that skill is no longer relevant in our world today. No hard feelings, but this is the way that some persons have lived their lives. They are still living in the old glory. Yes, you can do that thing some years back and you were the best of the kind. But now things have changed and you have to change. What are the ways you communicate today that will not be relevant tomorrow? Before now, we didn't have the projectors, we didn't have the Zooms, we didn't have the Teams, we didn't have the Google Meet and all those tools that aid communication, that aid people from different continents to collaborate, to have discussions. We didn't have them. But if you are going to be relevant in today's world, you need to know how to use them. And you need to be forward thinking that what are the things that will be relevant tomorrow that are not into play, that are not in the field of play yet. Another area is in your company. What are the marketing strategies that you've been adopting before now that will no longer be relevant in the years to come? You know, we used to have all these billboards that if you walk through a particular area, you see them and people paid a whole lot of money for them. But these days, marketing has a wider reach and cost far lesser. So you need to look at how you've been doing your marketing over the time. Is there a need for a change? You also need to be looking at your product offering. What products are you churning out? Are they relevant to today's world? If people are not buying your product, of course, you know what that means, that you'll be losing revenue. And as much as you are losing revenue and your operating cost is more than the revenue you are generating, you're on your way to being bankrupt. You also need to examine the technological tools you're using. In the era of COVID, it became very obvious that companies were not prepared for the working from home model suffered a lot. Not just churches, not just companies, a whole lot of organizations, non-governmental organizations, churches, mosques, and what have you. So you need to also consider what technological tools as a company are available to you and the relevance into the future. As a country, we have to be looking at our policies. As a matter of fact, policies is one of the metrics that shows if you have investors, if you have flock of investors into your country or not. This is something that Dubai has understood well. Your policies affect your SMEs, affects every business that is operational within the country. And if your policies are not favorable, the country also suffers for it in the long run. What are the technological tools that help the country to plan for its citizens? Do you have something that shows the number of people you have living in your country? It helps to plan allocation of resources efficiently. Another thing is the labor force. What is the age demographics of the labor force? Now, in many advanced countries, you have a lot of young folks coming to very significant positions, leadership positions, presidents, ministers, and what have you. So if your country is still like mine in Nigeria, where you still have a lot of old folks leading the country, then it's going to affect us at the end of the day. So these are some of the areas that we need to be looking at how to change and how to evolve. Now, here are some case studies that we'll be considering. Nokia. If you're familiar with the mobile phones, you will know that this used to be an household name. But what happened to them? Compaq. In the era of personal computing, when personal computing became the norm, these were one of the leaders of that era. If you look at Kodak, the camera space, where you have the films, where you snap with the cameras and you run wash the films in order to produce the pictures. The BlackBerry. What an irony. There are some mistakes that are generic to all of these companies, even though there are some that are specific to them, but we're looking at those that are generic so that we'll take learnings from them. And the first of it is that change is inevitable. The earlier you recognize this as a company, the better for you. It is rapid, it waits for no man. You either align to it or you get kicked out. It is also silent. As a matter of fact, you don't hear it coming. People are cooking up innovations in their living rooms. People are making things. People are experimenting in several labs that you will not hear about until the thing becomes a full-fledged product. So change is silent. Another thing is that change shames the rigid. So if you are rigid, if you are not adaptable, if you don't have that dynamism, you don't have that agility in your company, you'll be overtaken by change. And at the end of the day, you'll be out of business. You don't want that to happen to you, like it happened to Nokia, like it happened to BlackBerry, and lots more. Another reality you need to understand is that giants fall. All of these companies highlighted here were one-time giants that nobody could have felt that they could ever go out of business. But what's the reality today? They are no longer relevant. They're no longer relevant. Now, you need to understand that not making a decision is a decision in itself. So if you are waiting for that change to come, or if you are waiting and sitting on the success or the glory of yesteryears, you will understand that at the end of the day, you made a decision not to advance. And the world is structured in a way that if you are not advancing, you get left behind. Another is that you need to understand that everyone pays. You either pay forward or you pay later. In their case, they paid later. In many organizations that have been dynamic, like Mercedes-Benz, they paid it forward. and that's why they are reaping the dividend today. So what do we have to do? There is the Mr. Niger D of evolving, just like there is Mr. Niger D of living, where you have movement, you have your respiratory system, you have your growth, you have excretion, you have death, you have irritability, you have nutrition. Those are the signs that a human being is living. And as a person, as a company, or as a country, you are an entity. So what are the signs that helps you know that you are heading in the right direction, or that you need to rework your strategy? The first is that you need to shun complacency. So the fact that you are doing well today does not mean that there is no room for improvement. So in your company, if you are not asking the right questions about how you can be better, that means you have allowed complacency to set in. And it doesn't matter if you are the giants today. Like I said, giants fall. So tomorrow you may not be relevant. You need to be curious. As a person, you need to be curious. What skill do I need to harm myself with to be relevant in the next 10 years? We are currently in the area of information technology, data analytics, and all of that. But will that be relevant in the next 50 years? Ask yourself. So you need to be curious about trends. You need to be interested as a company in changes in customer needs. You also have to look at what your competitors are offering, because at the end of the day, some competitors are there to displace you, and they can do that within a very short time if you're not careful. You need to also seek feedback. Feedback is very, very important. You need to deliberately ask people, the users of your products, the frontline employees, those who interface with customers. You'll be surprised how much they know about the things you need to be improving about your product line. You also have to seek feedback from those closest to you. There are some persons that no one can ever talk to them, which is not good enough, because there are some parts of yourself that you cannot see for yourself except people tell you. And when they tell you, you're not taking that feedback, it shows that you're headed for a cliff. You also need to take risk. Risk is part of life. You need to understand that it's an integral part of growth. It's an integral part of evolving. So you not taking risk means that you set yourself up for oblivion. And that is what has happened to the likes of BlackBerry, to the likes of Compact, to the likes of Kodak, and of course Nokia. As a matter of fact, the brand name Nokia that you see today no longer belongs to Nokia, belongs to HMD. So when you see that name, is because they retained that trademark. So you need to understand that risk is part of evolving if you don't want to be kicked out. Lastly, but not the least, you need to encourage and empower employees to grow. There are organizations that give that allowance, maybe 30 minutes, 1 hour on a weekly basis, on a daily basis, for employees to think about anything around the product line, anything around innovations, anything around improvement in different ways, and come up with them, submit them, and sometimes they even get rewarded for these innovations. At a point, I heard Google was paying people who could hack into their systems because they recognize the importance of their system being foolproof. There are many businesses that are hinged on Google, that if Google loses its privacy or if it loses its data, many companies can be at risk. And that's why they pay a lot to Google to get those services. So Google needs to make sure that there's room for growth. They need to give their employees that room for them to experiment, to innovate, to give outsiders to try and break into their system, and they get rewarded for it, because that will show a loophole in what they are doing. Isn't that ingenious? So you need to embrace all of this. Don't be an island. Don't say, oh, I am the best now. You will not always be the best forever. Or for you to remain on top, you need to always hear what people have to say. I'm not saying everything will be good. I'm not saying everything will be rewarding, but you'll be able to sieve out 1 or 2 ways that you can make improvements in what you've been doing. Overall, in all your undertakings, you need to learn to be adaptable. Those changes will come, and for you to be able to flow with them, you have to be nimble, you have to be agile. Your company has to be adaptable, you have to be dynamic. in every way possible. So the question to ask yourself is, what areas of your company's existence will you start from? Is it from marketing? Is it from your product offering? Or personally, what areas do you need to make amends? Is it in the way you communicate? Is it in your skill set? As a country, what policies do you need to amend for you to have investors? Because with investors, your country can grow. There can be interchange of technology and many other things. So that is the focus of today's message. Remember that a living thing, a living entity will always have to evolve. Now, if you have a business that you want the world to know about, this is your platform. Kindly reach out to us and we'll showcase your business, your service, your product, or anything to the world and see what can come out of it. In case you've not been following us yet, follow us on Facebook, on Instagram, on Twitter, and of course, YouTube. Remember that as long as there is life, you, your brand, your country can make it right. Till we meet again, it's Symbol, and bye for now.